Hey guys, okay, so this is my first video. Basically, I'm a generalist. I cover all things media. If you guys have questions or whatever, this is the place. Just, ask any questions you may have in the media world with regards to 3D, 2D, compositing, visual effects, whatever kind of shot or effect you need, whether it be green screens or lighting or whatnot, just give me a shout down below and ask me to cover it, and I'll try my best to cover it. So today we're just going to go through a little program. It's called Megascans, and you can download this incredible library of textures or shaders or textures to create your shader. Um, with a PBR workflow. It's incredible. You get like a little program. If you have got Quixel's Suite 2 and you bought it a while ago, then this you get a free account and you get 50 points and you can download a couple of assets, and that's what I've done. Okay, so let's jump into it. I'm going to start up the program, Megascans Studio. I've dabbled in this a little bit, but not too much. So you'll be greeted with projects. Let's create a new one, and let's just call this ground or something. And then you get a couple of options here, which we can always go back and tweak later. So you can just leave this as is. We can change this later. Okay, so you start off. If you hold down Alt and your first mouse button, you can rotate. And then to zoom in or out, you can either hold down Alt and right click, hold down right click and zoom in or out, or you can use your wheel. And if you hold down your wheel, whoopsie. If you hold down your wheel, you can just pan. Okay. So Alt, first mouse button, second mouse button, and just your middle mouse, your wheel, and you can move around. Okay, so we start off with this plane. We've got a couple of things here. Let's have a look. So basically, this is just messing around and seeing what this does. So we've got a PBR here. We can break it down into all the different layers that make up our PBR texture. We've got this, which we'll cover a little later. We've got this little area here where we can change our different lighting, which we'll check out a little later. And then you've got a browser, which you can see all the Megascans that you've downloaded, and you can search, which you guys can check that for. So if you've got loads of these things, you can break it down into sections for you. We'll go back to viewport, and then you've got this layers settings export. Okay, so let's start off with, if you look in settings, you can see these were the options they gave us when we started a new project. So let's start off with layers. Here we go. So we've got three little buttons here. We've got a solid, we've got water, and we've got our the Megascans that we've downloaded. So let's pick one. Okay, let's pick a rocky surface, and there we go. It automatically applies it, and we've got a nice rocky surface. Now, once we've applied it from here, it doesn't always work that, but we'll get back to that. It comes up as a layer. So we can switch the layer on and off. We can delete the layer by pressing the X. Let's go get a new one. Okay, this doesn't work always. If it doesn't work, just go to viewport, browser, and we can reselect any one we want. Let's start off with rocks. And there we go. We've got nice rocky texture. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, so every time we have one of these things, we get do something with it. Okay, intensity, boom, boom. Let's leave it kind of like that. Frequency, that's cool. All the way down. So let's just move this up maybe a tad, something like that. Plateau. Okay, this flattens it off all for us. You see that? If I put my intensity up, you can see. That's cool. Let's leave that off for now, and let's go back to a chilled intensity. And then we get reflectance. Okay, my albedo, I can change the color. That's really cool. Let's change it to something like that, maybe. You can change all your reds, your hue saturation. It's great. It's beautiful. It's really awesome. Okay, and then we can change the glossiness of this thing. Boom, check out that. Let's try and get to a nice, there we go, look at that. So glossy, we can put how much gloss this thing has. So in my case, I want to make something like a wet surface or something. Let's see. So there we go. I'm going to make it a little bit glossy, and that's awesome. Right, then we've got placement. We can offset its X, we can offset its Y, and we can rotate it. Okay. So what do we do once we've got one of those things? Well, we can add another one. So I'm going to add another one over here. Click. If that doesn't work, just go to viewport browser and let's go click something else. Let's go get a clay. I'm going to use this clay. I just click on it and it applies it. Now it comes in as a second layer. You can see that. That's awesome. And we can deal with the threshold. That's awesome. That's awesome. We can deal with the radius. That's cool. Let's leave it somewhere there. Detail. Okay, let's have a look closer what this does. Detail. Okay, that's quite cool. It just gives that little bit more of a kind of a mask or a feather, doesn't it? Okay, so let's put a bit of detail and opacity. Look at that. So let's see what the opacity all the way gone or all the way up. There we go. So let's leave it a little bit halfway. Let's bring up this threshold a little bit. Something like that. Height blend, use underlying. Okay, this is quite cool. See what it does if I put this underlying all the way up. If I just take the eyeball off this so we don't see that layer, you see it conforms to the underlying layer. If I put this back on, notice something like this little ridge here. If I put this back on and go underlying, it fits to the geometry below it, which is quite cool. So let's just do it a little bit maybe. Blur underlying. Okay, we can blur that little height noise intensity. What's this? Okay, it gives it a nice noise, height noise. I'm going to take that off. Frequency, how many times this happens. See that? So there's my frequency. That's cool. Okay, let's leave this off. And plateau. Okay, we saw this. It cuts it into shades off the top of it. Right, we can change the albedo once again of this. See what suits it. Cool. Let's just change it to something like that. Look at that. And the gloss of it. Can make it really glossy. It's awesome. It's amazing. Okay, once again, you got your placements. And you can add as many layers as you want. You can also change the layer order. If I want this solid mud to be at the bottom, I can do that. You just hold down your first mouse button and you can click and drag. Let's add one more, okay? Let's add another layer. If that doesn't work, just go to viewport browse and let's add something like this mossy one. Okay, so now I've got some cool moss in the scene threshold. I'm going to bring it down a little. Let's take it to about there. The radius. Okay. Let's do something like that. Detail. Opacity. Let's see here quick. I'm going to change my light just to see if there's something better for what I want it to do. This is awesome, isn't it? Okay, let's just do something like that. It's clearer for me to see. So I can do my opacity. Okay, let's do something like that. Let's raise it a little bit. Something like that. Use height. Okay, I will. That's for the layer before it, so it's the soil mud. Height noise, we don't want that. Plateau, no. But I do want the gloss up. So there we go. Whoa. Let's go back to Pisa. So now I can see this is really, really wet. That's amazing. That's cool, isn't it? Once again, placement, blah, blah, blah. So you can put as many layers as you want on this. Just keep on doing. If I want to sort the layers in different orders, you can. You can do anything you want. And now let's go on to the next one. We've got three little icons here. 1, 2, 3. This one is where we've been putting all the shaders. Over here is a layer called a solid, which we'll come back to. I like to use this one at the end because it's kind of like an adjustment layer. I use it as an adjustment layer for everything I've done. And then this one's a water layer. Let's click on a water layer and boom, we get water. Incredible. Incredible. Let's take the threshold. I'm going to bring it down so it's like little muddy puddles. Something like that. Look at that. It's awesome. Surface, so let's just bring it like something like there. Opacity, obviously your opacity of your water. Your radius. Awesome. Gloss, okay. Gloss is quite high. Let's keep it high. Detail. Okay, this is quite cool. Check this out. So I can see my reflections in there, and if I put my detail up, you see it blurs my reflections, blurs them. That's cool. Okay, let's leave it quite glossy. Now for these are cool turbidity. Let's see here. Let's see what this thing does. So you see, it browns out my water all the way. This kind of is, yeah, it's depth, how deep your water is. So that's quite deep, big puddles. And if I put it on just a little bit, I can still see through the background of it, which is cool. And I can see there's something there. So I'll leave it something like that. So I can see below it, maybe a little bit less on that, something like that. So you can see your underlying textures or whatever maps underneath your water, which is quite cool. I like that. You can change the color of your water. Moist, worst word in the world, but let's see what this does. Okay, so it adds wetness around your rocks and stuff. Look right there. Your radius is kind of like a feather for that threshold. Let's feather it out a bit. Let's make it really glossy. Let's get a cool thing on that. Check this out. So glossy, non-glossy, and glossy. That's awesome, isn't it? Let's make it a little bit glossy. So it's kind of even more glossy. Okay, now darken. Let's see what darken does for the water. Okay, that's awesome. It makes the little edges a lot darker. That's quite cool. I really like that. It's amazing. And then your blur. Obviously you can, let's see what this does. If I put my darken up there, do I see anything? Let's try and look into the light. I can't see anything. Okay, not too sure what that does, but let's leave blur a little bit like that. And now we've got something gorgeous. We've got something beautiful. Another thing over here, remember we saw this little tile. If I click on it, it expands my tile so I can see it over a bigger area, which is quite amazing. Let's get some nice light shining on this thing there. I can click that off again, and over here, my PBR, I can see my albedo map. Excuse me. Albedo map, I can see my cavity maps. I can see my glossy maps. It's just a normal displacement mapping, occlusion, and metalness. Amazing. Okay, let's go back to PBR. Right, so now that we've got that, let's just go back to the second layer one. Here we go. I'm going to click it. Here's a solid. What does this do? Let's bring up the threshold. Boom. So it's up there. Let's settle it somewhere. Like I say, I use this kind of as like an adjustment layer. So if I put my radius up, you can get what you're kind of looking for. Let's do something like that. Details, something like that. Opacity, we can mess with that later on. But here we go. If I take the albedo and I change this color to something like darker, and you can see how it changes a lot of cool things. You can put the intensity up. It looks more muddy now. Take the intensity down. Frequency, whatever you want to do here. Plateau, your color, we've done that. And put its gloss up or down. So you can see how it changes, how the different kind of results you can get. Look, if I bring this up a little or down a little, you can see exactly. If I switch the eye off, boom, boom, you can see what it's doing. And I can reposition this to any part. I can put it here, and then it affects only the ones below it. So it's only affecting these down here. If I switch it on or off, you can see what it does. It's quite awesome. So I use it as kind of like a finishing off layer, just to grade something or make something look better or worse, or hopefully better, but you can use it for whatever you want. So if I bring this just a tad up, let's see, something like that, it just adds. It's awesome. Okay, so once you've messed around, you've played with your settings, you got something you really like, then you want to export the maps. So we'll go to export. Once again, in settings, you can change everything here again. Just like the options, you can work resolution in 8K, you can bring your ground size a lot bigger. PBAR workflow, whether you're working in different programs like Unreal or Maya Arnold or whatever, where you want to render it, you can render out the specific maps for that kind of program. Down samples, ground tessellation, how much tessellation your ground is actually using. Right, okay, so let's go to export. We'll give it a name. Let's call it, okay, ground. I've already done something like this, but the sound wasn't working before. So, surface name, just give it a name. Let's call it ground. Export location, let's go to desktop. Let's make a new folder called tut. Keep it nice and messy. I'm going to open tut. Select the folder, and then over here your export resolution. You can choose how big you want to export this resolution. Let's keep it at 4K for now. And over here maps, we can add maps. If I hit the plus button, you can call this diffuse or albedo or whatever you want to call it, and you can do this drop down menu over here, and you can start filling up your channels with different maps that you want to export. Okay, the alpha, I can put a cavity in there or something, and I can keep making new maps and putting different maps inside of them. Okay, that's a double gloss, I guess. Okay, so you can fill this up and do precisely exactly what kind of maps you want, others, etc., etc. But there is an easier way. If you just want all the maps together and you know exactly. You don't need to do anything special with them. Then we can remove these, and over here on the side you get a little drop down and you can say load default metalness, because we've got it on metalness. Okay, metalness, it says load default metalness, and it'll give me a whole set of maps that it's got like a preset for. Now I can click here gloss and metalness, and I can get all these maps. Then all I've got to do is say export. It'll export them for you. And then we can see what we have. Right? Okay, I'm just going to minimize all these things and go to tut. Here's my folder, tut, and boom. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? All our maps that we've exported. Now we can bring them into any other program. They're all 4K, so look at the detail. It's awesome. It's amazing. Man, this is incredible. And there we go. So we've got all our maps. Hopefully that wasn't too fast. We're just literally looking at a program very briefly. They do have tutorials on their website, so I've just covered pretty much what they've done. But I wanted to do one because in the next tutorial, I either want to take it into Maya or Unreal and see how it works, maybe both. And thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys later.